thank you for purchasing our Adirondack chair CNC kit. You should be have looked at your manual and saw that all the parts you need to assemble your chair are provided. All the holes are pre-drilled, so you won't need a drill, and everything is cut and will be set up fine. My name is Kyle Stapleton. My assistant's name is
Stephen Cook.
And we're going to show you how to assemble your chair. One thing you're going to have to notice is that this product is made out of engineered lumber, so it's made to be stable in outdoor conditions. You'll still have to prime and paint it to make sure it stays looking nice for years to come. One thing that you'll have an option to, the parts come out and are sent to you depending on the kit you ordered, may have sharp edges. So you have an option to either use a router to round them over. We have several options here. If you are routing, you can use a palm router here, which is a small router. You can use a large router that some people may have. You could also just use sandpaper to round over the edges, or what we're going to be using is a table router. But once you router over your edges, your boards will be ready to go, and you may need to sand them smooth. We sanded all of our stock here. It was fairly smooth to begin with, but we sanded it down to 120 grit. You need to use a power sander, a hand sander. As you can tell from the parts that you have in front of you and one that in front of me, they come very smooth, so you really don't need to do it. We also routed all of our back slats with a 1/4-inch router bit, and the arms and some of the seat slats. All that information can be found in the written documentation about what you should router or what you can router if you want to. So we're going to start on the lower assembly. As you can see, we have our side members here. The engineered lumber we used is one side is a C side, which you can see the knots in. The other side is an A side. So you're going to want, a B side. The side you're going to want out is a B side. It's sanded, it looks very nice. So the insides of your boards and the backs of your boards may have knots on them. Still very stable. The outside will look very nice for painting. So something else you'll notice is on our side members we have these notches here. These are positive stops, so you can slide your board right into them and screw them down into place. Alright, we have our side members set up. Again, the B side being out on both of them. We have them set up. We hang them off the table a little bit so that they aren't all wobbly on us, so we slid that up. Something you can use, what we like to use is a block right here, because we clamp it on the side, and so we can butt our boards right up to here and they slide against the back so you don't have any chance of messing things up. So we're using these spring clamps. You could use a standard clamp or a C-clamp. Anything you have in your home or garage would be fine. So we have them both clamped on there. Now I'm going to take my lower rear cross piece, again, bad side facing down, and I'm going to slide it in place like so. We're going to add some glue and we're going to screw it in place. A little glue will go a long ways. So if we lay a little bead right here, it'll ensure that our joint does not come apart. The screws we're using are very high quality screws. They're self-tapping, so you don't need to worry about drilling holes in your bottom board. So I'm holding it tight against the back stop and the side stop, and we're going to screw it right in. And you want to go until the screw gets sunk a little bit. That's our clutch system, so we don't overdrive things. Your drill may not have it. If it does, it's very nice to use. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. The back screwed in place. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with the front. What we're like to do is I like to set it up like this. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to clamp the side on. We're going to use our positive stops right here. We're going to slip it in place and we're going to drive the screws home. We have our board. You can see this is our front cross piece. It has 2 holes drilled in it. Again, make sure you refer back to the written documentation so you can see which parts are which parts. The main thing you'll be able to tell is by where the holes are drilled, by what they are. You can also use the measurements, but the easiest is just go by where the holes are drilled. One thing you may notice is when you put this on, that it may stick out on the other side, or it may be a little bit different. Feel free just to push it over with your hand and it'll flush right up, or when you put your boards on there to lock it, it'll be just fine. All right, one thing you're gonna wanna notice here, move your hand for a second, see how it's nice and tight here? You wanna make sure that it's nice and flush here and on the side. If that's not it, your boards can get all out of wonk, and then your chair will not be assembled correctly. So make sure you hold it nice and snug so everything's in there properly. All right, now that we have the base frame assembled, it's time to put our legs on. This is where it gets pretty easy. Again, make sure that the knife side is facing out. The holes are already pre-drilled for you, so all you're gonna have to do is slide them in place. Use the hardware that comes with the kit, and put some glue around the holes, put it inside there, and nail them home. All right, so we're just gonna put some glue around these holes here while Stefan is taking our bolts apart. And again, this will just make sure the joint is that much stronger. So we're gonna take one of our bolts here, slide it through our first hole, and we're gonna take that and we're gonna slide it through this first hole right here. Stefan's gonna put the rest of them in there. They'll locate themselves. You just push this. You may need to use a hammer to tap them home, but you should be just fine without. Now that the bolts are through, you're going to apply a washer, which is the flat one, a lock washer, which is the one that kind of looks like a spring that's starting, and then we're going to put our nut on there. And we're going to tighten that. We're going to use our fingers to tighten those down, and we're going to use our wrench, or where we have a socket wrench, you can use an open-end wrench, just be fine, and we're going to snug this down. When you're snugging this down, these are carriage bolts, so you need to watch the front here if you want to zoom in. And once this head gets sunk in snug, you should feel it. It'll sink in there nice and snug. Quit tightening. We're going to do that with both sides now. Put on our rear seat slide. Our rear seat slide will go right here. It'll sandwich our back slats in. This is where you actually have to do a little bit of work on your own, is you have to take a tape measure or a ruler, and you are going to measure from this lower rear cross piece, and you're going to measure down 1 inch, and you're going to make a mark on the outside of the leg at 1 inch, and you're going to do that on both sides of the chair. Once that's here, you can zoom in, right?
Yeah, but
once that's there, you're going to set the slat on here, flush it to the sides, make sure it's lined up properly, and you're going to put your screws in. All right, now we're to the point where we're going to put our seat slats on. So you have two options to put your seat slats on. You can see all these are pre-drilled for screws, so if you do not own an air nailer, you can just use the screws that are in the kit. If you do own an air nailer, I would just use an air nailer. We use a 16 gauge rigid finish nailer, and with galvanized nails. It works wonderfully, but the screws will work just as fine. But we make a lot of these chairs, so we use the nails. So the first one that goes in is the one with the 3 holes in it here. One hole will be for putting a screw in up the front, and the other ones will put screws in on the sides. So we are going to slide it out here a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to nail it home. No glue is needed for these. If you want to, you could. Now that we have that one set in place, you can align the rest by eye. Once you have them in a spot that you find pleasing to the eye, feel free to nail them in place the exact same way. You're going to want to use some sort of glue or filler to fill these holes in because it's going to be outside. Don't worry about the look. Again, you're going to prime and paint them, so it'll be fine. But you don't want these holes to fill up with water and whatnot when these chairs are outside. Now that's done, we're going to put in our brackets. Our brackets go on the side to hold our arms in place here. It's a little bit hard to see, but there is a very light groove cut in here, so all you're going to have to do is you put this in there, lock it into place, kind of like a Lego, and hold very nice and snug. Put a little glue on here and screw them into place. Alright, one thing we use to help put ours on is a clamp here, and that just holds it in place. Again, you're going to want to wipe the glue from these spots when they start squeezing out. It'll just give your project a nicer look and feel. Don't worry about smearing the glue again, it's all going to be painted. Alright, now we're going to get on to the upper assembly. The first thing we have to do for the upper assembly, is you're probably wondering why we didn't nail this in place, is we actually need to take this back piece out so we have enough room to install our back slats. Again, our arms are all pre-drilled and set up. Again, there's a very, very light groove in this area, so when you drop your arms on here, they'll lock right in place. And then once they lock in place, put a little glue on there, and then just put your screws in. Okay, as you can see, we have our screws put in here. Everything lined up nice, they're straight back. Now it's on to put our upper rear back piece on. We do it the same way we installed our legs. Notice there's a good side. There's also an angle cut in this. The angle should be slanted upward. So all we're going to do is we're going to put some glue on here, just like the legs, around the holes, and we're going to install our bolts the exact same way. Alright, now it's time to put on our backrest. For you folks at home, you can do something like this. Find a board that's a little bit smaller than this, and you can clamp it on using your spring clamps, your C-clamps, or whatever. All this is going to do is make your life a little bit easier. We do it because we make a lot of chairs in a year, so we don't have little tips and tricks to do this. But this is definitely something you don't need. It just makes your life a lot easier. So all you're going to do now is we're going to grab all of our seat slats, and we're just going to start lining them up and laying them on top. You're going to notice that you should be able to put it right to the edge here. You can see a little bit of line here. If you put it right to the edge, and it'll go straight up. And you can see that there's flat spots along this whole backside. So if you just put them right in those flat spots and set them in place, they'll line up very nicely. But what I always tell the students is make sure it looks good to the eye, because your eye will not lie. If something's off, it'll look off, and then you'll be able to fix it from there. So if we look at it, you see everything lines up very nice and neat. Should look nice and perfect. Now all we're going to do, we have pre-drilled holes that are in the correct locations. All you have to do is we're going to put a dab of glue on the top and the bottom of each one, and we're going to screw them home. Alright, as you can see, we have these lined up. You can adjust and move them around until it suits your fancy. What some people like to do is they like to fan them out a little bit, so you can push them up against the outside rails there and get a little fan going there. If that's the way you want it, feel free. If you want them straight up and down, you can have it that way as well. So I'm going to have it fan just a little bit like this, and then we're going to go on the back like we talked to before and mark them so we know where they go. As you can see, I'm marking the boards right here. They're marked all the way around, so I know where they go. Okay, we have them all lined up. We're just going to finish tightening these screws up right now, and everything will be locked into place. On the back side here, no screws should have came through the back side. Should be nice and smooth. If there's any glue, feel free to wipe it down, and you should be good to go. So congratulations, you've now assembled your chair.